Most people don't lose their lives to tragedy. They lose them to disorder. Not because life is hard, but because they never learned to take control. Every day without structure is a day where chaos decides your destiny. If you don't organize your life now, your dreams will die waiting. Most people believe their lives are out of control because the world is too fast, too demanding, too chaotic. They tell themselves, I don't have time. Work is overwhelming. There's too much going on. But the truth is far more uncomfortable and far more liberating. The problem is not the speed of the world. The problem is the lack of structure inside you. The world isn't disorganized. Your day is, your priorities are, your habits are. And until you face that truth head on, nothing in your life will ever change. Every one of us receives the same 24 hours. The billionaire, the athlete, the exhausted single father, the struggling student, the entrepreneur trying to survive. The clock doesn't discriminate. Yet some people transform their lives in 2 hours a day, while others waste 14 hours and call themselves busy. The difference isn't luck. The difference is intention. It's structure. It's the courage to stop improvising your life and start designing it. Studies show that over 82% of people have no real time management system. Nothing beyond a few random notes, scattered reminders, or a to-do list buried under notifications. And when you don't have a system, you don't have control. You react, you drift, you survive the day instead of directing it. A survey of modern workers revealed that 89% admit to wasting significant hours every day, not because they want to, but because they never learned how to protect their time, how to focus, how to prioritize what actually matters. It's not motivation people lack, it's order. Think about your own life for a moment. How many days have you lived on autopilot? You wake up late, rush through the morning, grab whatever task screams the loudest, answer messages as they come, let other people's emergencies become your responsibilities. You end the day exhausted, not because you built something meaningful, but because you spent your energy reacting instead of leading. Then you tell yourself, tomorrow I'll be better. But tomorrow is just a repetition of today. The same chaos, the same noise, the same lack of clarity. Let me give you an example. I once coached a man who said, Brian, I just need more hours in the day. He believed his job, his kids, and his responsibilities were robbing him of the life he wanted. But when we evaluated his habits, we discovered he spent 6 hours a day scrolling through his phone, switching between apps, consuming endless content, and calling it rest. 6 hours! That is more time than most people spend sleeping intentionally. He didn't need more time. He needed a structure that protected the time he already had. And then there was another man I met. He worked full-time, had a family, and barely 2 hours a day for himself. Yet in 1 year, he got in the best shape of his life, paid off debt, took courses, and started a small business. 2 hours, that's all he had, but he used those 2 hours with surgical precision. He knew exactly what mattered, and he acted on it every day. Same world, same chaos. Different structure, different destiny. When you don't create order, chaos fills the vacuum. When you don't choose your priorities, someone else chooses them for you. When you don't control your schedule controls you. And the cost of that disorder is far greater than you think. You lose energy, you lose clarity, you lose the belief that you can change. Bit by bit, your dreams shrink, your vision fades. You stop expecting more from yourself because you've spent too many days drowning in things that don't matter. But here's the good news. The moment you decide to bring structure into your life, The moment you stop improvising and start designing, everything begins to shift. Your mind calms, your energy stabilizes, your confidence grows. The world stops pushing you, and for the first time, it starts opening doors. Order is not a prison. Order is freedom. Structure is not restriction. Structure is power. When you know where your time is going, you know where your life is going. When you protect your focus, you protect your future. You don't need to become perfect. You don't need to transform overnight. You don't need to mimic someone else's routine. You only need to do one thing. Decide. Decide that your life is too valuable to keep giving it away to randomness. Decide that your dreams deserve more than leftover minutes. Decide that every day is a vote for the man you become. And today, you vote for order. Because here's the truth few people ever hear. Your future will not be created by motivation. It will be created by structure.
You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. And if your system is chaos, your results will always be chaos. The moment you choose structure, your life begins to align. Your purpose becomes clearer, your decisions become simpler. You stop waking up each day asking, "What should I do now?" because you already know. You planned it, you committed to it, you engineered it. And when your days gain direction, your life gains momentum. This is where transformation begins. Not in inspiration, not in excitement, but in the simple, powerful act of taking control. If you truly want to regain control of your life, you must begin with the most fundamental element, your time. Time is the great equalizer. Every person, rich or poor, successful or struggling, gets the same 24 hours. But the difference between men who move forward and men who remain stuck is simple. The first group uses those hours with intention. The second group loses them to reaction. Most people don't live their days live them. And let me tell you this clearly, a reactive life is an exhausted life. Think about the typical morning of an overwhelmed man. He wakes up late, already behind. He grabs his phone immediately. Messages, notifications, distractions. His mind is assaulted before he even stands up. He rushes through the morning, skipping breakfast, skipping clarity, skipping purpose. On the way to work, he is mentally scattered, already thinking about problems he hasn't even faced yet. And the entire day becomes a chain reaction of urgent tasks, last-minute crises, forgotten commitments, and constant mental noise. When evening comes, he's drained, defeated, and confused about where the day went. He doesn't need more sleep. He needs direction. And what he thinks is a motivation problem is actually an organization problem. Research shows that people lose up to 2 hours a day to micro-distractions, checking phones, switching tasks, rechecking things they already checked, wandering in and out of tasks without finishing anything. 2 hours a day is 14 hours a week. That's 728 hours a year lost to pure randomness. Imagine what you could build with 728 hours. A business, a degree, a new skill, a transformed body, a different life. But none of that happens because people don't design their days, they react to them. If you want to take back control, the first rule is simple. Stop improvising your day. Start designing it. This is not about becoming rigid, mechanical, or obsessed with schedules. It's about recognizing that every minute without direction becomes a minute buried in distraction. And those minutes accumulate quietly until you wake up one day and realize that your potential died of neglect. So, how do you design your day? You begin the night before. The worst time to make decisions is in the morning when your mind is foggy and your willpower is low. The best time is the night before, when you can calmly, intentionally decide what your future self will do tomorrow. Write down the 3 most important things you must accomplish. Not 10, not 20, 3. Why? Because your mind can hold 3 things with clarity. When you have 10 priorities, you have none. When you have 3, you have direction. And here is the key. You do those 3 tasks before you let the world interrupt you, before you respond to messages, before you open social media, before you check the news.
Before you let someone else's agenda invade your mind. When you do what is important before what is urgent, your entire life begins to shift. I coached a young salesman who was constantly overwhelmed. He spent his days replying to emails, attending unnecessary meetings, scrolling through social media for a break, and then wondering why his numbers were low. I asked him to start each day by completing just 3 high-value tasks before doing anything else. After 2 weeks, his productivity doubled. After 1 month, he hit the highest sales numbers of his team. Nothing about his intelligence changed, nothing about the market changed. Only one thing changed. He took control of his mornings. The first hour of your day is the steering wheel of your life. If your first hour is chaos, your day will follow that chaos. If your first hour is intentional, your day will follow that intention. This is why successful people around the world defend their mornings with almost religious discipline. They're not lucky, they're structured. And structure produces success more consistently than talent. Another principle: never start your day inside your phone. A phone is a portal to other people's priorities. The moment you open it, your mind is hijacked. Notifications redirect your focus, messages plant new worries, social media floods your attention with noise. In 16 seconds, you lose the clarity you spent all night recovering. Instead, start with yourself, your breath, your body, your mind. Move for 5 minutes, hydrate, read something nourishing. Sit in silence long enough to decide what kind of man you want to be today. That silence is not a waste of time. It is the foundation of a productive day. And then structure your time into blocks. Humans are not built for multitasking.
Multitasking is the enemy of deep work, the destroyer of momentum, the illusion of productivity. You cannot build anything meaningful when your attention is divided into fragments. Block your day into focused segments: 90 minutes for your main project, 30 minutes for communication, 60 minutes for learning, 40 minutes for planning. When every block has a purpose, your mind stops wandering because it knows what to do. One of the biggest breakthroughs comes when men understand this truth. Your calendar is not a prison. It is a map that tells your future where to go, a map that protects you from drifting, a map that ensures you don't wake up every day at the mercy of randomness. And here is the most inspiring part of all. You don't need a perfect schedule. You don't need a perfect system. You don't need perfect consistency. You only need to keep returning to structure every time you fall off. Because the man who returns to structure again and again becomes unstoppable. Not because he never fails, but because he never stays lost. Direction is more powerful than perfection. Intention is more powerful than intensity. And one good day, a day designed, a day aligned, can change the course of your entire week. With time under control, something remarkable happens. Your stress decreases. Your clarity increases. Your energy stabilizes. Your confidence rises. You stop drowning in chaos. You start swimming with purpose. This is the transformation that begins the moment you say, I will no longer live in reaction. I will lead my day before my day leads me. Once you begin to control your time, the next battlefield is your environment. And this is where many men fail without ever realizing it. Once you begin to control your time, the next battlefield is your environment. And this is where many men fail without ever realizing it. They try to build discipline in a space that constantly sabotages them. They want clarity while living inside visual chaos. They want focus while surrounded by distractions. They want peace while their environment screams disorder. But here's the truth. Your environment is not neutral. It shapes you every minute of every day. People often tell me, Brian, I just can't stay focused. I get overwhelmed. I can't think straight. And the first question I ask is simple. What does your room look like? What does your desk look like? What does your home look like? Because a cluttered environment produces a cluttered mind. It's not theory, it's biology. When your surroundings are chaotic, your brain must constantly process extra information. Piles of papers, clothes everywhere, cables, notifications, open tabs, unfinished tasks lying in physical form around you. Every object out of place is a silent decision your brain has to evaluate again and again. Imagine a man trying to start his day. He sits at a desk covered in old cups, scattered notebooks, pens that don't work, bills he hasn't opened, items he doesn't need, and reminders of tasks he's been avoiding. He wants to concentrate, but his environment whispers, "You're behind, you're messy, you're not in control." Before he even begins, he is mentally defeated. Contrast that with another man. His workspace is simple: a clean desk, a notebook, a laptop, a bottle of water, a plan for the day. When he sits down, his environment says, "You are ready, you are focused, you are in control." That mental message becomes momentum. That momentum becomes productivity. That productivity becomes confidence. And that confidence becomes results. Your environment is either your ally or your silent enemy. The good news is this. You don't need a perfect minimalist home. You don't need expensive furniture. And you don't need a showroom office. You need functionality, order, intention. Every object must have a place. Every corner must serve a purpose. Everything you keep should help you move forward, not hold you back. Let me give you a real example. A client of mine worked from home and struggled for years to stay organized. His house wasn't dirty, but it was chaotic. Papers in 5 different locations, tools scattered across rooms, a kitchen table full of half-finished projects. He believed he had ADHD. He believed he lacked discipline. But when we reorganized his environment, created a workstation, a simple filing system, a designated shelf for tools, a clear rule of one place for everything, his productivity doubled within a week. Not because he became smarter, but because the noise around him finally stopped. Your environment either trains you to be disciplined or trains you to be distracted. Think about your phone for a moment. For most people, it is the most dangerous environment of all, because it is a pocket-sized factory of distraction. Notifications, alerts, bright icons, endless scroll. You don't fail because you're weak, you fail because the environment is designed to steal your attention. So change the environment. Turn off notifications. Delete apps you don't need. Move your phone out of reach during work blocks. When the environment changes, behavior changes automatically. And it's not only your physical space, it's your digital space. Look at your computer. Are there 50 tabs open? Hundreds of files on your desktop? A chaotic inbox? That digital clutter is mental clutter in disguise. Every open tab drains your cognitive load. Every messy folder adds a sense of unfinished work. Take 30 minutes and clean it. Put everything in folders. Delete what you don't need. Create one clean digital workspace. You will feel your mind breathe again. There is a deeper truth hidden in all of this. The disorder you tolerate outside is a mirror of the disorder you accept inside. When your home is chaotic, your habits are chaotic. When your desk is chaotic, your priorities are chaotic. When your digital space is chaotic, your thoughts are chaotic. And when everything around you is noisy, everything within you becomes noisy. This is why organizing your environment is not a luxury, it is a necessity. It is a foundation for mental clarity, emotional stability, and long-term focus. You cannot build a strong life on a disorganized foundation. You cannot create greatness in a space that suffocates you. You cannot expect disciplined behavior in an environment that invites distraction. So start with something small. Your desk, your room, one drawer, one shelf, one folder on your computer, one area at a time. When you bring order to one space, you create emotional relief, and that relief gives you momentum to organize the next space. This is how transformation begins, not with a massive overhaul, but with one deliberate act of order. As you do this, something extraordinary happens. You begin to trust yourself. You begin to see that you are capable of creating structure. You begin to feel stronger, calmer, clearer. Your environment becomes a constant reminder of who you want to be, not who you used to be. And the more aligned your environment becomes, the more aligned your behavior becomes. Order creates discipline. Discipline creates progress. Progress creates identity, and identity creates destiny. Remember this. Your environment is the silent partner in your success. If it is organized, you grow. If it is chaotic, you fall. The men who achieve extraordinary results are not just disciplined, they are strategic. They build environments that make success effortless, not harder. They design their surroundings so that their habits become automatic, their focus becomes natural, and their productivity becomes inevitable. You can do the same. You only need to begin. Once your environment is aligned with your goals, the next battle is the most invisible and the most dangerous. Distraction. We live in the noisiest era in human history. Never before has a man's attention been under such relentless attack. And the tragedy is this: most men don't even realize their attention has been stolen. They think they are choosing distraction, but in reality, distraction is choosing them. I want you to think about something for a moment. When was the last time you were fully present, fully focused, fully immersed in one task without reaching for your phone, switching tabs, or checking something just for a second? For many people, that moment is so rare they can't even remember it. That is the cost of modern noise. And here is the truth no one wants to face. You cannot build an extraordinary life with a distracted mind. Every great achievement, every business, every masterpiece, every transformation was built in states of deep focus, not fragmented attention. But today, the average man lives in constant interruption. Research shows that the average smartphone user touches their phone over 2,600 times a day, and heavy users reach nearly 5,400 touches. Imagine what that does to a mind. Imagine what that does to a life.
Your attention has become your most valuable currency, and you are spending it on things that give you nothing in return. Let me illustrate this. A man wakes up, and the first thing he does is check his phone. Before he's even out of bed, his brain is flooded with information. Messages, alerts, social media updates, email notifications, breaking news, unnecessary noise. His mind is hijacked before he has a chance to breathe. He starts the day already carrying the weight of other people's priorities, opinions, and problems. No wonder he feels stressed. No wonder he loses focus. He didn't even begin the day with himself. He began with the world. Then he tries to work. But every few minutes, a notification pulls him away. A message pops up. A random urge makes him grab his phone. He checks one thing, then another, then another. What should have been 1 hour of deep work becomes a fragmented mess. His energy drops, his productivity suffers, his confidence declines. And at the end of the day, he feels exhausted, not because he worked hard, but because he never truly focused. Distraction is not a small problem. Distraction is a life-destroying force. A distracted man can be intelligent, but he won't finish. He can be talented, but he won't progress. He can be motivated, but he won't execute. Because progress requires depth, and distraction keeps you on the surface. Here's the principle you must remember. Where your attention goes, your life follows. If your attention is fragmented, your progress will always be fragmented. If your attention is stolen, your future will be stolen as well. But once a man learns to master his attention, something extraordinary happens. The world slows down. Opportunities become visible. Stress decreases. Decision-making becomes simpler.
And work that once felt heavy becomes deeply satisfying. So, how do you reclaim your attention? First, you must control your digital environment. Turn off non-essential notifications. Silence your phone during work. Better yet, place it in another room during deep focus blocks. Delete apps that drain your time and dull your mind. Create scheduled times, 2 or 3 windows a day, for communication. Not every message requires an instant response. Not every alert deserves your energy. Your mind is a powerful machine, but it cannot outperform a bad environment. Reduce the noise, and your mind rises naturally. Second, train your brain for deep work the way you train your muscles. Begin with short blocks, 20 minutes, then 30, then 60. Do one thing. No switching, no checking, no interruptions. At first, you will feel restless, not because you are incapable, but because your brain has been conditioned by constant stimulation. Stay with it. Breakthroughs come through discomfort. And here is a remarkable truth. Every minute of deep focus you win back is a victory against chaos. These victories accumulate. These victories rebuild your confidence. These victories reshape your identity. Third, embrace silence. Not just the absence of noise, but the presence of clarity. Silence is not empty. It is where ideas are born. It is where solutions emerge. It is where your mind organizes itself. Spend 5 minutes each morning in silence. Breathe, think, let your mind settle. It is in this quiet space that you regain control over the day ahead. Fourth, simplify your digital life.
Close unnecessary tabs, organize your files, keep a clean desktop. Have one browser window, not 12. Clutter in the digital world is just as destructive as clutter in the physical one.
When everything on your screen has a purpose, your mind becomes sharper, calmer, and more efficient. Let me tell you a story. I worked with an engineer who claimed he was always overwhelmed. His mind felt scattered. He couldn't concentrate for more than 10 minutes. When I looked at his digital habits, I understood why. He worked with 60 open tabs, constant alerts, 5 messaging platforms, and no structure. I asked him to shut everything down except the one task he was working on. For the first time in years, he experienced deep flow. In 3 hours, he completed work that normally took him 10. He didn't become more intelligent. He became more focused. And focus changes everything. When a man masters his attention, he masters his destiny. Because attention is the doorway to action. Action is the doorway to results. And results are the doorway to transformation. The men who rise, the men who build, the men who stand out in a world full of noise, they are not the ones with the most talent or the best circumstances. They are the ones who have learned to protect their focus like a priceless treasure, because it is one. And in a world drowning in distraction, deep focus becomes a superpower. You can develop this superpower. You can reclaim your attention. You can rebuild your mind. It begins with one choice. I will no longer be a slave to distraction. I will choose depth. I will choose clarity. I will choose control. Once you begin controlling your time, your environment, and your attention, you reach a threshold that many men never cross, the threshold of financial order.
And let me tell you something clearly. No matter how disciplined you are, no matter how well you plan, no matter how sharp your mind becomes, if your finances are in chaos, your life will always feel unstable. You cannot build a powerful life on a foundation of financial anxiety. Money is not everything, but money affects everything. Your stress, your confidence, your opportunities, your relationships, your mental clarity. When your finances are disorganized, your mind is disorganized. When your spending is impulsive, your life is impulsive. When your wallet is out of control, your future is out of control. Most men never develop financial discipline, not because they lack intelligence, but because they avoid the truth. They don't want to look at the numbers. They don't want to see how much they actually spend. They don't want to confront the purchases they make to soothe emotions instead of advance their goals. So they distract themselves, they justify, they minimize. But here is the truth that will set you free. You cannot change what you refuse to confront. One of the most damaging beliefs a man can have is, when I earn more, then I'll get organized. That is a lie. If you cannot manage $1,000, you cannot manage $5,000. If you cannot manage $5,000, you cannot manage $20,000. The problem is not income, it is identity, habit, and structure. I once coached a man who earned a solid income, far above average. Yet every month he ended with nothing. He blamed the economy, his bills, his responsibilities. But when we sat down and examined his last 3 months of expenses, he discovered the truth. He was destroying himself with small leaks,
constant food delivery, unnecessary subscriptions, impulse purchases, weekend spending he never planned for, and emotional buying sprees every time he felt stressed. None of these expenses alone seemed big, but together they devoured nearly 40% of his monthly income. He didn't have a money problem, he had an order problem. And when he faced that truth, when he looked at the numbers with honesty, everything changed. He canceled what he didn't use, he reduced what wasn't essential, he gave every dollar a job. And within 6 months, he had built more savings than in the previous 6 years. He didn't need a higher salary, he needed a higher standard. This is the power of financial order. Clarity replaces anxiety, control replaces guilt, purpose replaces chaos. So how do you begin? You start by looking your finances in the eye. No excuses, no shame, no avoidance. Sit down with a notebook or a spreadsheet and write 3 things. 1. Your monthly income. 2. Your fixed expenses. 3. Every variable expense from the last 30 days. Do this with brutal honesty, not with stories, not with justifications, just facts. Because facts are firm, but feelings are foggy, and fog is the enemy of progress. Once you do this, something powerful happens. You begin to see patterns, emotional spending, impulsive spending, wasteful spending, and the moment you see patterns, you can change them. Then you set a rule that will transform your life. From this month on, save a minimum percentage of everything you earn, even if it's only 5%. But Brian, 5% is nothing. No, 5% is everything.
Because 5% is not about the amount, it is about the identity. It is about training your mind to prioritize the future over the impulse of the moment. It is about building the muscle of financial discipline. It is about learning to live on less than you earn. And here's a powerful truth. If you do not learn to live below your income will never be enough, no matter how high it gets. Financial disorder is not fixed by raising your salary. Financial disorder is fixed by raising your standards. I once met a man who earned very little, far less than he wanted, but he treated every dollar with respect. He tracked every expense. He saved consistently. He avoided debt. He bought only what aligned with his goals. And within a few years, he built a small investment portfolio and emergency fund. He gained confidence, he gained options, and eventually he gained better opportunities. Because financial order creates the mental stability you need to advance in every other area of life. This is the irony. People believe financial discipline limits them, but in truth, financial discipline liberates them. Because when your money is organized, your decisions become clearer, your stress drops, your confidence rises, your long-term thinking activates, your self-respect grows, your future expands. And there is another truth that most men never consider. Your finances are a reflection of your internal structure. If your spending is impulsive, your emotions are impulsive. If your budget is chaotic, your habits are chaotic. If your accounts are neglected, your decisions are neglected. Financial order forces you to develop the deeper skills that shape your entire life. Self-control, delayed gratification, intention, commitment, consistency, long-term thinking. These are not money skills. These are life skills. And money simply exposes whether you have mastered them or not. When you organize your finances, you are not just fixing your wallet, you are fixing your identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who is capable, responsible, disciplined. And once that identity forms, it becomes impossible to go back to old habits. Remember this forever.
A man who controls his money controls his future. A man who does not control his money will always belong to someone else's future. You deserve control. You deserve peace. You deserve options. You deserve a life where money supports your goals instead of suffocating them. The path begins with one decision. I will put my financial life in order. Not tomorrow, not next month, not after a raise. Now. Because order creates power, and financial order creates lasting power. Once your finances gain structure, there is a deeper layer you must confront. The layer that silently determines how you behave, how you decide, how you follow through, and how you respond to life. That layer is your emotional order. And let me tell you this as clearly as I can. You cannot build a consistent, disciplined, purpose-driven life if your emotions remain in chaos. Not because emotions are bad, but because emotions without structure become dictators. Most men grow up believing that emotions are either weaknesses to hide or storms to obey. Both beliefs destroy lives. The truth is far more empowering. Your emotions are signals, not commands. They are information, not identity. They are consequences, not destiny. A man with emotional order doesn't shut down his feelings, he interprets them. He doesn't suppress his frustration, he studies it. He doesn't drown in sadness, he examines it. He doesn't fear anxiety, he decodes it.
And because he understands his emotions, he is no longer controlled by them. Let me show you how emotional disorder destroys progress. A man wakes up motivated. He makes a plan. He feels inspired. But something goes wrong. A bad message, a stressful morning, a mistake at work, a moment of insecurity. Suddenly, he loses momentum. His motivation drops, his energy collapses, and he abandons what he planned. Then he feels guilty. Then he restarts. Then he stops again. And he repeats this cycle for years. This is not a discipline problem. This is not a motivation problem. This is an emotional management problem. Most people live their lives reacting to how they feel, instead of choosing how they act. And the difference between those two is the difference between an average life and a powerful life. So how do you develop emotional order? You start by observing your emotional patterns. Take 5 minutes at night, every night, and ask yourself, when did I feel anxious today? Why? What frustrated me? What triggered it? What gave me energy? What drained it? What thoughts repeated themselves? How did I respond? And how could I choose differently tomorrow? Write it down, not for therapy, not for drama, but for clarity. Because what you do not name becomes a pattern, and what becomes a pattern becomes a prison. I once worked with a man who believed he lacked commitment. He tried diets, routines, business ideas, new habits, but every time, the moment he felt overwhelmed, he quit. Not because he wanted to quit, but because no one had ever taught him the skill of staying calm inside discomfort. He was not weak, he was untrained.
We worked on one simple exercise. When he felt overwhelmed, he would pause for 60 seconds, breathe deeply, and ask himself, what is the real cause of this feeling? At first, it felt silly, but within weeks, he discovered patterns he had never seen: fear of failure, perfectionism, self-pressure, unresolved anger. And once he understood the patterns, he became capable of changing them. Emotional order gave him control he never thought he had. This is why emotional order is so powerful. When you understand yourself, you stop sabotaging yourself. And there is another truth you must embrace. You will not feel motivated every day, and you don't need to. Motivation is a spark, not a system. Emotions fluctuate, but discipline grows in the moments when you act despite your emotions. A man with emotional order does not wait to feel like it. He acts because he has decided who he wants to become. There is a moment in every man's life when he must choose whether he will be a slave to his emotions or a leader of his emotions. That moment divides boys from men, reactors from creators, the lost from the focused. Emotional order also means understanding the difference between discomfort and danger. Most men treat discomfort as danger. They avoid the gym because it's uncomfortable. They avoid difficult conversations because they fear conflict. They avoid long-term goals because progress is slow. They avoid taking risks because uncertainty feels threatening. But discomfort is not danger. Discomfort is growth. Discomfort is expansion. Discomfort is the gateway to the life you want. Emotionally disorganized men hide from discomfort. Emotionally ordered men walk into discomfort with intention, because they know discomfort is temporary, but the results that follow are permanent.
Another essential element of emotional order is self-talk. How you speak to yourself shapes your identity, your confidence, and your ability to focus. Most men speak to themselves with a harshness they would never use on another person. They insult themselves, they doubt themselves, they criticize themselves. They punish themselves for mistakes, but never reward themselves for effort. And then they wonder why their motivation collapses. You must learn to speak to yourself the way a great mentor would speak to you, with honesty, with clarity, with firmness, and with belief. Not soft excuses, not emotional indulgence, but powerful support. I made a mistake, and I will correct it. I feel afraid, and I will act anyway. I fell today, and I will rise stronger. I do not need to be perfect. I need to be committed. This is emotional leadership. This is maturity. This is what builds lasting discipline. When your emotional world becomes orderly, something extraordinary happens. Your mind becomes peaceful. Your decisions become clearer. Your energy becomes consistent. Your confidence becomes real. You stop burning energy fighting your own feelings. You stop losing progress every time life gets difficult. You stop restarting your life every few weeks. Emotional order transforms you from a man who reacts into a man who chooses, from a man controlled by feelings into a man guided by purpose, from a man who quits when stressed into a man who grows stronger under pressure. And when this happens, everything else in your life begins to align, because the storm inside you has finally calmed. Remember this with absolute certainty. You cannot create external order without internal order. You cannot organize your life until you organize your emotions. Emotional order is the foundation of an unshakable life. And once you master it, nothing, not stress, not fear, not setbacks, not doubt, will have the power to stop you again. Once you have taken control of your time, your environment, your focus, your finances, and your emotions, you reach a point where many men unconsciously sabotage themselves, their relationships. And let me tell you something with absolute clarity. You cannot build an organized, powerful, purpose-driven life while surrounding yourself with people who live in chaos. Because disorder is contagious, laziness is contagious, negativity is contagious, and the wrong people can quietly destroy the structure you worked so hard to build. Most men underestimate the influence their relationships have on their behavior. They tell themselves, "I can change alone. I don't need support. It doesn't matter who I spend time with." But human beings are shaped by their environment, and relationships are the strongest part of that environment. Show me the 5 people you spend the most time with, and I will show you your future. Because the truth is simple. You rise to the level of your circle, or you fall to the level of your circle, but you never stay above it for long. Think about the people in your life right now. Are they helping you grow, or are they pulling you down? Are they lifting your standards or lowering them? Do they encourage you to focus, improve, and build your future? Or do they distract you, drain you, and normalize mediocrity? I once worked with a young man who wanted to transform his life. He was determined, motivated, and disciplined.
But every Friday and Saturday, he went out with the same group of friends. Friends who laughed at discipline, mocked ambition, encouraged bad habits, and dismissed self-improvement as boring. Within 2 months, his momentum collapsed. Not because he didn't have potential, but because he didn't have support. He had a vision, but he didn't protect it. When he finally understood that his circle was sabotaging him, he made a painful decision. He reduced his time with them and began connecting with people who valued growth. Within 6 months, his life was unrecognizable. His habits improved, his confidence rose, and his entire identity shifted. He didn't change alone, he changed by changing his environment. That is the power of relationships. They can either be your greatest force of progress or the anchor that keeps you stuck. And here is the hard truth. Some of the people who limit your growth are the people you care about the most. Family, friends, coworkers, sometimes even a partner. Not because they are bad, but because they are comfortable where they are. And when you rise, your rise threatens their comfort. You must understand this. Not everyone wants you to improve. Not everyone benefits from your progress. Not everyone is ready to follow you where you're going. Some will try to hold you back with jokes. Some will try to hold you back with guilt. Some will try to hold you back with fear disguised as advice. And some will simply drain your energy without even realizing it. Your job is not to fight them. Your job is not to argue with them. Your job is to protect your focus and your future. This begins with boundaries. Clear, firm, respectful boundaries.
You do not need to answer every message immediately. You do not need to be available to everyone. You do not need to attend every event, every outing, every conversation that leads nowhere. You do not need to engage in gossip, negativity, or pointless debates. A man building an organized life learns to say, "I'm not available right now. I have something important to focus on. I'm working on myself. Not today." And the people who truly care about you will understand. The people who don't will naturally distance themselves, and that is a blessing in disguise. But protecting your life from the wrong people is only half the equation. You must also move closer to the right people. Seek out individuals who live with intention, people who value time, people who respect discipline, people who want more from life, people whose habits elevate you simply by being around them. If you cannot find such people physically, find them digitally, through books, through podcasts, through mentors, through content that strengthens your mindset. Your circle is not limited by geography. Your circle is determined by what you consume, what you imitate, and what you allow to shape your mind. There is another relationship that is even more important: the relationship you have with yourself. Many men live in external disorder because they live in internal conflict. They speak to themselves harshly. They doubt themselves. They criticize themselves for every mistake and rarely acknowledge their progress. They treat themselves like an enemy instead of an ally. And that self-relationship determines every other relationship. Once you treat yourself with respect, respecting your time, your goals, your emotions, your boundaries, the world begins to treat you differently. Your standards shape your reality.
When your internal relationship is strong, you no longer tolerate people who drain you. You no longer chase validation. You no longer cling to relationships that keep you small. You make decisions based on your future, not your fears. And here is the most powerful truth of all. When you bring order to your relationships, everything else in your life accelerates. Your habits improve because you're no longer surrounded by bad influences. Your productivity increases because you're no longer exhausted by draining people. Your goals become clearer because your mind becomes quieter. Your confidence grows because you're no longer fighting battles that aren't yours. Your progress speeds up because your environment supports your vision instead of suffocating it. The right people elevate you. The wrong people suffocate you. And you must choose who has access to your energy every single day. Relationships are not just emotional. They are strategic. They are structural. They are part of the architecture of your life. And if you do not design this architecture with intention, it will collapse under the weight of other people's chaos. You deserve relationships that support your growth, not sabotage it. You deserve people who believe in your potential, not people who fear it. You deserve an environment that strengthens your discipline, not one that destroys it. And the moment you choose such an environment, the moment you filter, adjust, and elevate your relationships, your life will rise with it. After you've structured your time, your environment, your attention, your finances, your emotions, and your relationships, there remains one final layer. The layer that gives meaning, direction, and power to everything else. Without this final element, even perfect organization feels empty. That element is purpose.
Purpose is not a luxury. It is the engine of a well-organized life. Purpose transforms discipline from a burden into a necessity. Purpose turns routine into passion. Purpose turns sacrifice into satisfaction. Purpose turns order into momentum. Without purpose, you can be organized and still feel lost. But with purpose, you gain a force that aligns your entire life like the sun aligns the planets. This is the mistake most men make. They try to organize their lives without first deciding what they are organizing their lives for. They fill their schedules with tasks but leave their souls empty. They achieve goals that don't matter. They climb ladders leaning against the wrong walls. They move fast but move nowhere. Purpose is not about becoming someone society approves of. Purpose is not about meeting expectations handed to you by your family, your culture, or your past. Purpose is about deciding, with clarity and courage, who you want to become and why your life matters. And you don't need to know your final purpose to start organizing your life. Purpose begins as a direction, not a destination. At first, it may feel vague, incomplete, or uncertain. That's okay. Purpose becomes clearer as you move toward it, not before. Think of a pilot flying an airplane. He doesn't maintain perfect direction every second. He constantly adjusts, small corrections, tiny shifts, but all those adjustments are guided by one thing: a clear destination. Without that destination, his adjustments are meaningless. With it, every correction has purpose. Your life works the same way. You won't always feel perfect clarity. You won't always feel perfect confidence. You won't always feel perfectly certain about your next step.
But if you know the direction, the kind of man you want to become, then every small adjustment becomes meaningful. So ask yourself questions that most men avoid for an entire lifetime. Who do I want to be in 5 years? What kind of life do I want to wake up to? What kind of relationships do I want to build? What kind of work gives me meaning? What kind of energy do I want to carry every day? What legacy do I want to leave behind? These questions are not philosophical. They are structural. Because the answers to these questions determine what belongs in your life and what must go. Purpose becomes the master filter. Anything that strengthens your purpose stays. Anything that weakens your purpose is eliminated. Anything that aligns with your direction becomes a priority. Anything that distracts from your direction becomes noise. And once you adopt this filter, decision-making becomes simple. A man without purpose is overwhelmed because everything feels equally urgent. A man with purpose is calm because he knows exactly what matters. Think of the man who wakes up with no direction. He drifts, he scrolls, he reacts, he wastes energy, he wastes time, he wastes his life, not because he wants to, but because there is no compass inside him. Now think of the man who wakes up with purpose. He doesn't waste mornings. He doesn't waste relationships. He doesn't waste money. He doesn't waste years. His life has structure because his life has meaning. And here is something extraordinary. Once a man commits to a purpose, even imperfectly, his entire environment begins to reorganize itself around that commitment. Distractions lose their power. Doubt loses its influence. Fear loses its grip.
Opportunities appear because he can finally see them. People who match his direction enter his life. People who don't drift away naturally. Purpose is the foundation of an organized identity, and identity is destiny. Let me tell you a story. I once met a man who had spent years trying to organize his life. New planners, new apps, new routines. But everything fell apart after a few weeks. He thought he lacked discipline, but that was not the real problem. His real problem was that he had no purpose to organize around. His routines were empty. His goals were borrowed from other people. His structure had no soul. When he finally discovered his purpose, helping young men develop discipline and leadership, everything changed. He began waking up earlier without forcing himself. He stopped wasting money because he wanted to invest in his mission. He reduced his social circle naturally because he no longer wanted relationships that contradicted his values. His life gained direction. His direction created structure, and that structure created success. Purpose turns effort into passion. Purpose turns discipline into identity. Purpose turns habits into destiny. When you live with purpose, you no longer ask, "How can I stay motivated?" You ask, "What must I do next?" When you live with purpose, you no longer say, "I'll try." You say, "I commit."
When you live with purpose, you no longer wait for conditions to be perfect. You act with what you have, where you are, as you are. And here is the most liberating truth of all. You do not need to have everything figured out to begin. Purpose does not require perfection. Purpose requires honesty. Purpose requires courage. Purpose requires movement. Your life will not change in a single moment of inspiration. It will change through daily acts of structure driven by purpose. Write, reflect, review, adjust, organize, and keep moving. Because every act of order you take today is one step closer to the man you were meant to become. Purpose gives your life direction. Order gives your life momentum. Together, they give your life meaning. And once a man has meaning, he becomes unstoppable. You are not here by accident. You are here because a part of you is tired of living in reaction, tired of drifting, tired of feeling that your potential is slipping through your fingers. And now you know the truth. Your life will not change because of luck, talent, or inspiration. It will change because you choose order. When you take control of your time, your environment, your attention, your finances, your emotions, your relationships, and your purpose, you stop surviving and you start leading. You stop waiting and you start creating. You stop hoping and you start deciding. Order brings clarity. Clarity creates direction. Direction builds results, and results transform your life. The world will not organize itself for you. No one is coming to save you. This is your responsibility and your opportunity. Start today. Start small. Start with intention. Because the moment you bring order into your life, everything changes.